Manual screen printing can sometimes be a grind, especially if you're printing on harder to print fabrics like fleece. But not with the Rudy Press, which gives manual screen printing consistency and effectivity. Today we're gonna print a bunch of district tri-blends and a few hoodies to show off the Rudy Press and answer your Q&A questions. Some people have been asking about setup time, and as you can see, it's actually pretty quick to adjust to a frame, especially if you're keeping your same color of ink on your Squeegee and flood bar and leaving the Squeegee and flood bar attached. So right now I just put a brand new Squeegee and flood bar in. Very easy to align to the frame because it's the same distance of the frame, and then just clips on quickly with these little 4 clamps. Once you make your setup adjustments on your Squeegee and flood bar, you really don't need to change those from time to time. Let's talk about press compatibility. Will it work on my press? Well, that's the cool thing about the Rudy Press is that it works on InPress because it attaches to your screen. Now, right now it works on 20 by 24 screens, but the larger 2331 version is coming, as well as side clamp attachments for a side clamp press. One thing I will point out is that it's very important, because this floods in the down position, that you have a stout press with good off contact controls and you have good screens. Because if you have low tension screens and when you're flooding, that ink's gonna droop down. Okay, looks like we got a good flood going on there. I get a little ink on my Squeegee before I do my test print. Speaking of Squeegee, let's talk about the accessories. So right now I'm actually printing with a 14-inch Squeegee. It does come with a 12-inch Squeegee, so yes, they are available in different sizes. And I'm using a triple durometer blade on my underbase and then our standard 70 durometer for my overprint. Let's see if that registered. Pretty sweet, we're just a little bit low. So I'm gonna flash that off and come up just a hair. Here's a good one. Can I get away with not having all Rudy presses on my press? Let's say I only use it for my wide underbase. Keep in mind that your Rudy Press is pulling the screen from top to bottom, so that in order to keep that screen drag registered correctly per screen, we're probably gonna want to use a push stroke. Now, obviously you can adjust your registration to match appropriately if you do prefer to pull. So what about ergonomics? Is this actually better for the manual screen printer? This is actually super great for your body because you're using your body force to press down. You're not needing to bend your wrist or put a lot of pressure on your hands right there. It's got an easy grip handle, and then body force, just one print, boom, good to go. Woo, ready to go. I'm getting these platens warmed up. Let's talk about quality. Does the Rudy Press actually create a better quality print? Short answer to that is no. Manually screen printing, you can create a great quality print. But where the Rudy Press comes in is the consistency, over and over again, and to give the quality of a professional, well-executed screen print in the hands of any screen printer, even brand new ones. A big question is, how big can I make my prints? Now, the Rudy Press is currently available on 20 by 24 screens, and you do have some limitations because you can't use the entire screen. We want to keep our print inside of 14 inches because that's the biggest Squeegee and flood bar that comes. So think about it, maybe 13.25. And then as far as height goes, you do have some adjustment there, but I would say somewhere between 12 and 13 inches. This particular print is about a 12-inch wide print, just over 12 inches tall. I'm gonna do a double print underbase, making sure my screen is clearing all the way. I got the maximum pressure and a triple durometer blade on that underbase. Right here, I'm not getting a super great clean, so I'm actually gonna take it, I'm gonna raise the angle a little bit. I'm gonna come down a little bit more so that it's a little bit more up and down and I get a little bit more pressure out of this blade. Another question we got is, how easy is this to adjust on the fly? As you can see here, I just keep a 5/32 Allen wrench there, and very simple to make adjustments. Those adjustments don't typically need to be made over and over again. Okay, a much, much better clean screen right there with just a little tweak to that angle. Ooh, that registered trademark's coming out even on this thing. So when compared to true manual screen printing, which is done by hand, can I just perfect my skill to make sure I have a more consistent result and a better print? And the answer to that is absolutely. But it gets a little bit harder over the course of time, especially with harder to print fabrics like we're printing today. When you're trying to clear that screen over and over again, not every print's going to be the same. And that's one huge thing about this Rudy Press, is that like an automatic press, every print is gonna be the same. I've been manually screen printing for over 25 years, and it's not until more recently where I got more experience with automatic presses that saw the real value of an automatic press, that consistency, that mechanical movement. And that's what the Rudy Press literally gives into the hands and on the press of a manual screen printing shop. These are freaking sweet. Okay, now time for our overprint. One thing that I really noticed about this automatically is the need to load a little bit more ink than you're used to as a manual screen printer. Automatic shop's gonna be used to this, but a manual screen printer typically can get away with not loading as much ink because you can push a little bit harder on that flood if you're running low on ink. With the Rudy Press, it floods the same way every single time, so getting a nice ink well in there makes it a little bit easier. Well, as you notice, we have Juan's name signed. He is the inventor. Juan approached us at the Long Beach show this year, talked to one of our guys. Kevin brought over Brandon, and Brandon immediately saw the vision. From there, we actually had Juan come up and take one of our screen printing classes. At that class, he brought the original prototype of the Rudy Press up and showed it to not only the Ryonet team, but students in class, and they were wowed. From there, Chris Drury, our director of engineering, got on and started to think, like, how can we actually scale this in a manufacturing environment? I just can't, like, this is looking so good. It really does a good job of matting those fibers down, which can be very difficult on tri-blends. So is it worth the cost? Well, one thing about Ryonet manufacturing it and partnering with Juan on this is that because of our scale and manufacturing up here in Vancouver, Washington, USA, we're able to get the price drastically down from where it was when he launched it in Mexico. I mean, is it worth it? This looks amazing. And it's the easiest screen printing I've done manually ever. I got really spoiled when we had our rock up here at Ryonet. That consistency, that effectivity of a screen print, not only from how easy it is to accomplish, but the quality of the actual finished fabric. So why not buy an auto? If I'm gonna spend the money and invest in 6 or 8 Rudy presses, what I would say to that is you should absolutely get an auto because it's doing the same thing, but now over and over again. But this is still way more cost effective than an automatic press, especially for your garage shops. It doesn't take any power. We also don't have to have an air compressor or a 220 volt 3-phase. So it is more cost effective and a lot easier to increase the quality, reduce the stress, and speed things up a little bit on a manual screen printing shop. We're not gonna slow down towards the end of the day on that print run. You need to get a little bit more red ink. Works great with Effin ink, by the way. Speaking of ink, what about water-based ink? You notice I'm not leaving my screen flooded during the print because it's plastisol. Can I leave the screen pre-flooded like that with water-based? You can, but it is a little bit different, and I'll illustrate that here. Because my Rudy Press is gonna be best suited in the down position, you don't wanna leave it up at the top of the screen. So what you can do is you can flood like that, and then you just push it halfway down, and that allows both your squeegee and your flood to travel over the screen, leaving the screen flooded. These are great questions. Keep them coming, screen printers. Is it too heavy for the press, and how much does it actually weigh? Well, the Rudy Press weighs just shy of 11 pounds. So not super heavy, pretty lightweight, made of lightweight components, lightweight aluminum. So we tried this on, obviously, like our top end Riley Hopkins presses, like this 360, which you got dual springs back there. We also tried it on the 150, and it worked just fine on the 150. So that only has 1 spring. And if your press needs a little bit more, oomph behind it, you can maybe use bungee cords or something like that, which I've seen people do for very different reasons, including using bigger screens on smaller presses. One thing I'm noticing now, like after printing a lot of shirts, is that it really gives you not only consistency of the print itself, but really consistency of the edge of your print. Sometimes when you're manually screen printing, especially if you push down a little bit too hard at the end or pull a little bit too hard at the end, you can smudge out an edge, and this is giving us perfect edges. Somebody commented this could be actually a hassle for multiple colors. I'm not exactly sure why. I would say maybe because of the registration or putting this on multiple screens. And the cool thing is I actually registered this job before putting the Rudy Press on. And because the Rudy Press attaches to the screen, if I do need to make those micro adjustments after it's on, that's pretty easy to do. It works exactly like micro adjustments you would make on a screen. Yeah, one of our first videos, we had somebody comment that the screen wasn't really clearing. There's 2 reasons for that. One is how the pressure is set up using the right squeegee flood bar. We didn't have triple durometers back then, making those first videos. That super helps when printing white ink especially. Maybe the pressure wasn't set all the way, or maybe the screen was older or not great tension, or also maybe did not have the proper off contact. So this doesn't change the way screen printing works. You still need to screen print the same exact way. What this does do is that once you get those settings, it gives you consistency. That means you need to know a little bit more about the mechanics behind screen printing in order to give yourself those settings and set yourself up for consistent success. Now we're gonna switch to fleece, so I'm gonna put a little bit of mist on there just to get a little bit more stick here. And because this is a little bit bigger print, we're actually just be going on the back of the hoodie. Oh, running out of ink, so just gonna get a little bit more ink in this, half caulk the Rudy Press, and then reflood it. Perfect. Great question that we got was a lot of videos that we were doing at the beginning, the Rudy Press was just being printed with one hand. In fact, I kind of printed it from the side on the shirt show episode. You can totally do it with one hand, but I just prefer two hands. It's really easy to get in on there. This actually almost cleared. I was thinking I might have to raise my off contact a little bit, but I had a good amount of off contact. Let's see if we get a good clear on that second pass. Oh, wow. We actually do without even raising the off contact. I had a little bit high off contact here. It was just giving myself a little bit more space, knowing that I'm flooding in that down position. So that's one thing. The other thing is that the Riley 360 is a really great press. It holds very consistent off contact, allowing the Rudy Press to just flood directly over the print very easily. One thing about the Rudy Press is you'll notice you'll need to have those ink cards or spatulas a little bit more handy, because ink's gonna start to move just naturally to the edges of your screen, and you can't take your squeegee and just manually scrape it back in. So that's very similar to an automatic press. You need to have those things, those tools a little handy to keep the ink in the center of your frame. Those wing flood bars have done a great job of keeping ink inside. We don't have a lot of ink on the outside. Okay, so that's print flash print on this hoodie. This is the second print. I'm just gonna do one pass here. Again, we cleared well, and we got a super nice opaque print. Did clear and did release, but that additional off contact may have worked a little bit easier, especially over time with that fleece. When it comes to printing something specifically like this fleece, a good question that we got is like, can you set max pressure so I don't over press this? And right now we have our pressure set all the way up. You'd really have to crank this down to over press this. It's just a very natural press right here, like that. You can set that, however, if you want to give yourself a little bit of safety, you just take this and turn these screws down to set that max pressure or distance. I did my kids' high school mission trip shirts. They were hoodies. They're like, can we get hands on screen print? I'm like, no, you can't, because I'm barely doing it. It was not easy. Fleece right here, this looks beautiful. We're not using an iron. We just have a good mesh. This is a 158 mesh screen and a mechanical device that's helping give us that pressure that we need to really get a consistent print, especially on these harder to print fabrics. One thing about this Rudy Press is that you are pushing it so that those who are not fans of the push method of the manual type of screen printing, it's actually not like that. If you notice the way this is angled, this is actually like pulling. Gives you that pressure and it gives you that angle that a pull would give you, controlling the ink and printing the exact same way that a pull would. In fact, this is the same way a rock press prints. I was talking to Rudy earlier today, and he said he went to Long Beach and he saw that rock press print for the first time, and that's where he got the idea of the Rudy Press. So it's printing very similarly to an automatic press, which gives you that consistency and not letting your ink gain out and still allowing you to use that full squeegee and angle in order to get a great looking print or a great ink deposit. Final question with the last piece that we're printing today is, how fast can I get my hands on one of these Rudy presses? Typically our manufacturing lead time is 2-3 weeks by the time it arrives to your door. So not too long and definitely worth the wait, but definitely plan to get ahead of things, especially before hoodie season next fall. We can't wait to see what you guys do with the Rudy Press in your manual screen printing shops every single day. Thanks for watching. If you have more questions, comment below. And if you know a screen printer, a manual screen printer that would benefit from this content or the Rudy Press, definitely share it. Appreciate you guys powering the print with Ryonet and the Rudy Press. Let's go.